Hello, welcome to the Socks Make People Sexy Let's Play Summer School 2015. It is finally 35 degrees outside. So, this week we have to do something that I have been dreading for a very long time. We have to play a game that we don't like because we have all been subjected to detention by Rhete. Because he says we're all bad. I did nothing bad. I don't know what he's talking about. So, I have to play a game that I don't like. And that means it's hard for me to choose that because there's not that many of them, but there's a couple games in particular, and one of them really stood out. And it's the DS game RPG, Lunar Dragon Song. I'm not a big fan of this game, at all. In fact, I'd probably say it's my example for one of the worst RPGs I've ever played. And it more comes from some of its design decisions and why it makes those. It's not the best well-developed game. As you see from the intro, the music sounds nice, the presentation's pretty good. I have no issue with the game's presentation. In fact, I sort of like it. For a DS game, it's one of the first DS games and first DS RPGs. It's sort of a wasted opportunity, though, in that. How meandering this game is, and how it sort of has systems that contradict each other. And how this game sort of doesn't do anything at all. Even with the name Lunar. Which with Lunar, my experience, at least with the series, I played the GBA game Lunar Legend, then I played Silver Star Story for the PS1, and then the sequel, Lunar 2, Eternal Blue, which is great. And then went to Lunar Dragon Song and, well, got a little disappointed. We're not watching the intro, don't worry. We're actually skipping into a later area in the game, just the first main dungeon of the game. And you can see a lot of the issues, I think, from this area and how this game works. So we're going to go into a battle. And from this battle, you're going to see one of the main issues of Lunar Dragon Song. So, you just noticed, I selected the attack command, but I didn't select something else. What enemy to attack? The game has decided that the AI is smarter than I am and decides to attack the other whatever enemy it wants to. Or, I'm not really sure if it's dependent on anything along those lines. It seems to be sort of dependent on moving like a left and right, but it doesn't really do anything for me on that. A lot of the excuse of the game was to streamline the RPG process, to allow people to get to what they want out of an RPG, the story. It doesn't really help that Lunar Dragon Song's story is kinda meh, but that's not entirely the way an RPG should be meant to look at. You want these systems to mix in with each other and to do good things. To streamline the RPG process, this isn't the best way to do it. Again, from this battle, you're going to see the battle is going to take place the same way. Only I'm going to auto-attack, which is going to be the same thing as what I just selected, pretty much. With no regards to strategy or defense, except for when I need to heal something, I'm going to heal it. That's also a command I don't know how to do. Giant's counter. I'm not sure what determines that, or how that works, countering attacks. You're going to notice when the frame rate, when the character's frame sort of goes speed up, that means I'm holding the R button down, and that's just speeding up the animation. You see these systems here, and there's decent enough. Athena Conduct is just EXP. That's how much EXP you need to get to the next level. It looks pretty basic, but those systems are fine, but again, the whole battle system sort of doesn't allow you to select enemy commands. That's a big turning off point, but that's not one of the big ones. This particular system I'm about to show off, you notice I just, the face down in the bottom corner of the, bottom right of the screen changed. And that's going to be something big. This is one of the main issues of Dragon Song and how it handles EXP and how it handles gaining money and items in the game. And that is, well, if you select that icon, you will now go into another battle mode where you will gain items instead of EXP. The main issue with this is that it's counterproductive. You're grinding and gaining items to get further in the game, but you have to switch between either I get EXP or getting items. The items are used to sell and gain money, so you can buy items. But the problem is, if I'm getting items, I'm not getting EXP to make myself stronger. That'll handle the later bosses, which kind of forces me, hey, I might want... So it's kind of productive in that I sort of have to use what's around me. I can't build up, the way you want me to, game. And all leads on, just to tack on to everything else, whenever you run in this game, it drains HP. And you can't run when you have a third HP left. That's sort of the big one. And this first dungeon here is we have to see these statues in the front of the dungeon, which will help us solve a puzzle later on. That's if you have the patience to go through when you're trotting along like this. I'd recommend writing this down. Definitely write it down. But at the moment, no real enemies to really deal with in this room, but again, that sort of allows the game to trot along at its meandering pace that it has. It's kind of boring. It's almost boring. The game can almost play itself with its battle system. That's if you're not being but you still have to be careful. In that some enemies can just jump at you and hurt. Especially if they start dealing with status effects and, buffs and debuffs. You can buff and debuff yourself, but as you probably saw in the menu, those spells take a lot of MP to cast. And this also goes into another particular thing about this game. With each room, it has a certain number of enemies. At the bottom screen, on the map, you'll see a check boxes below the clock, pocket watch, and those are marking off how many enemies you've killed in the area. When you've killed enough enemies, you can access the blue chest that's in that room, which will net you an item of some kind, and it depends on different use of what that item is useful for. As we see here, we're seeing different enemies, different skeleton enemies that are not really too tough, but see, they cause more damage than the fly enemies. What I would normally do is go for the enemies that would cause more damage, and then go for the weaker ones. But the game is going in this left to right pattern that's not... It's counterproductive to what I want to do in the RPG. And it's not letting me select those, and that's troublesome. It really is. Especially when you want to get rid of a certain enemy first, and then take on the rest of them. And that's the main problem I have with Dragon Song. It doesn't allow you to... Well, it doesn't allow you to roleplay, even. And again, the problem with getting items and EXP, it just doesn't work. And it also takes out the strategy that's in the other games that the series is known for. Just know I'm going to be taking out battles that you've already seen, or enemies that you've already seen for right now. Nothing really to see here. You'll see the level ups, though. But it takes out the strategy that is prevalent in the other games in the series. Like, for example, I think the GBA Lunar has a problem with this, too. In Silver Star, you have a limited inventory and limited items that you can use, and you need to manage those. You need to use spacing to clear each enemy encounter. You need to basically do a lot of management. Lunar 2 is the same way. Lunar 2 even has an interesting, for the Sega CD at least, has an interesting skill system that you don't gain spells by using them. You gain points to go into spells, and then you can you gain magic points to put into spells and keep getting them stronger and stronger. This game is sort of a on-rails RPG, similar to the likes of Final Fantasy XIII. And actually, I think Final Fantasy XIII has more interaction. You can at least select what you're attacking. And really, it's kind of a pointless RPG in that sense. And as you're going to notice here, some of the other stuff is not really useful. Like, for example, the magic gum is going to be not very useful here. There is one other interesting system in this game, and it's gaining cards, and each card has a specific use that they have. You gain cards by defeating enemies in battle, and those cards do have effects later on in battle. Like poisoning all enemies, making sure all your attacks hit 100%. I do think that's an interesting mechanic in this game. Like I said, Lunar Dragon Song does have good ideas. It's just other ideas contradict each other. And streamlining the RPG process doesn't work here, in this sense. Like, having the battles be almost automated doesn't really engage you a lot. It works better when the battle engagement works with the story engagement. For example, the game Chrono Trigger deals with that. You want to... With Chrono Trigger, the battles are streamlined, yes. You don't see random encounters. Like, in this game, you don't see random encounters. In Chrono Trigger, you don't see random encounters. All the enemies are on the map. It doesn't seem like it goes through another battle screen, but it does. But with Chrono Trigger, you have these systems that work with the game. Using techs allows you to build up techs. Using techs and magic, using attack, using defense, you can defend, attack still, allowing you to even select your enemies. Even though you still have to do all that, the game is still really fun to play, and is one of the best examples of the streamlined RPG. I think even as beginner RPGs, I think even Mystic Quest has a lot more going for it than Dragon Song here. In that, with Mystic Quest, it streamlines the system by not having equipment, but you still partake in these battles that do have a little bit of a strategic edge to them. Not too much, though. It's probably another wrong way to do a RPG like this, but if you haven't played Mystic Quest, try it out. I do recommend that game. Final Fantasy Mystic Quest is not a bad RPG in this sense. This game has systems that contradict each other, that don't work. Now, remember the statues that came forward, that we had at the beginning of this dungeon? We're seeing these dragon statues now throughout these rooms, and what we need to do is talk to those dragons in order. And, I mean, basically just to find the rooms here to do it. I'm just trying to avoid enemy encounters for right now. We don't really need to. We're pretty much ready for what to face the rest of this dungeon. So we talked to the red dragon statue first, and here's another problem with this puzzle. These dragon statues are in order. We talk to red, then we do white, then we do black, then we do blue from that puzzle. And this puzzle is not really necessary, I don't think. It's more flavor to what this area is. It's a temple of worship for the 4 dragons that's no longer used, and now it's a nest for a Sasquatch family. And we're going to kill that Sasquatch family because they stole a package. That's basically what we're doing in this dungeon right now. It's a JRPG. Now, if you notice I'm going back to this Athena statues, those heal your HP whenever you see it. You can see that just easily. A good basis of operations if you want to sort of center yourself around there. But yeah, we solved that puzzle. Now we're going to go head up to the dungeon boss, which technically I'm not going to have enough time to show all of them, but basically you have to fight 4 Sasquatches at the end of this dungeon. And we are going to fight one of them. They're not too tough, but you'll see what we're coming up to. Activate this warp point, and from this room we see 4 ways to go through. You can go either way. Either way you want. The character design, like, for example, the character designs are fine in this game. It's a JRPG, but my main issue, and the reason why I don't like this game, is that it keeps contradicting itself. It doesn't... Even though it sort of says, hey, let's streamline the focus for a good story, it's not really that good of a story. It's not really worth it. Go play Lunar, Eternal Blue, or Silver Star if you want a good Lunar game. Especially play the Sega CD and PS1 versions of those games. Those are the better ones. And I really like the Sega CD version of Lunar 1. It's really fast, really combative. This game is really slow. It's not really I don't think it's really worth too much to even go back to. And if you want a good DS RPG, an example of how to really make some really good examples of DS RPGs that work with the system and work with what it has to offer with the 2 screens, go play The World Ends With You from Square Enix, or go play Atlus's Radiant Historia, which Those two in particular are really good RPGs that do a lot to the genre. Those are my recommendations for good DS RPGs. With this battle, again, it's attacking, healing just when needed. And a lot of RPGs are like that in the beginning, but this game doesn't do anything else. It sort of meanders along this process, and it's not much too positive on this game that you can find. This is the last week for the Let's Play Summer School 2015, and if you've all watched these eight videos, congratulations. I'm sorry for you watching them, but if not, I hope you had a good time, and I might even try to get into some LPing myself with maybe some other stuff. I have an idea for a game I want to do again, and I think y'all might like that if I ever get the muster to do it. But that's what I have to say about Lunar Dragonsong. I don't recommend this game. Go play Radiant Historia instead. Much better game.